We're rolling.
Welcome everyone to the fourth episode of Satoshi Chats. I'm Jack,
And my name is Casey.
and today is November 30th, 2020. And today's a very special day. Why is that, Casey?
Bitcoin has hit all-time highs as of today, November 30th.
It's crazy. As of recording this episode, current price is $19,240, and Ethereum is 602.
What an unbelievable price for both.
It is quite ridiculous, isn't it?
It seems like it was just months ago that we were discussing the time that it would hit 19,000, and here we are.
And here we are. Not too long ago.
And it's strange. It doesn't really seem that different. It's not. I mean, I guess there's been quite a bit of institutional talk since the times when it was sub 10K. But it's just so
Right.
interesting how it seems to just come together like that.
Right, it was just so steady increasing from 10K that just kind of no one really kind of noticed it. It was just so steady that 5% here, 5% here. Oh, it
Right.
adds up.
It
Now
really
it's
does.
20K.
Yeah, it's funny how quick the movements were, and how just unnoticed it seemed to go by the general public.
Right.
Last time when Bitcoin hit like 17K, it seemed like everyone was like ecstatic about it, and there's a big frenzy. And this time, even though there is like quite a bit of talk within the crypto community, outside it just kind of seems to be just passing by.
Feel like yeah, I feel like since it hit the all-time high today,
Hmm.
I feel like people are talking about it less than they did in the previous all-time high, right? Because it was more hype back then, but I feel like now no one's really talking about it. So I feel like the time they will talk about it is when it hits, 100K, right?
Yeah, right,
That's gonna be the next move.
right. And so, on the Satoshi Chats podcast, we're not price predictors here, but we do believe it will be going up. And
It will
when
hit 100K at one point.
exactly, and when it does, I think, like you said, the hype will just be so different. It'll be unimaginably, talked about on all sorts of platforms. And so I just can't wait. And obviously, this is the first step. This is literally the historical moment we're going to remember when Bitcoin was just starting the new bull run. And what a fun and exciting day.
Right. So what do we have planned for this episode, Casey?
So today we're actually talking about something super interesting, and it's all based on this chart we have here. So I'm gonna actually edit in the chart, um, but we can talk about it for right now. So this chart, right? It shows the passage of time on the lower x-axis and the market capitalization in reference to Bitcoin on the y-axis. And essentially it describes the Lindy effect. And what that is over time, um, essentially a commodity or a money or some sort of economic factor, the longer it is in usage and acquired, essentially, the more likely it is to have longer term usage. So it's like a compounding effect. Yeah. So it's essentially describing adoption. Um,
Yeah.
and so it's interesting to look at this timeline because this wasn't created by us, by the way. It has a point that says we are here. And from here, we can kind of get a general idea. I'm not sure if I completely agree with where it is, but I think we can get a general idea of where we are in terms of adoption with Bitcoin. So let's start off. Are you looking at the chart right now, Jack?
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now.
Let's start off with these first 3 points here. Um,
Right.
we've got digital scarcity, immutability, irreversibility, and digital collectible for nerds and caps and cypherpunks, actually. Um,
Yeah, I think we're definitely we could definitely say that we're past that point.
yeah, I think
This was
when
back in the day, maybe when Bitcoin was worth the cost it took in electricity to mine, so maybe
Right.
like 5 cents or something.
The whole 10,000 BTC pizza kind of time, right?
Yeah, that was kind of like for fun. So that was probably, back, what was that,
14.
2013, 2012, something
Yeah,
like.
very early. So,
Um,
yeah.
but
So
improving decentralization, censorship resistance,
I think
manipulation. That
the next one is so key. That's really what
Yeah,
started
that
Bitcoin.
orange, that orange spec.
Right. That is there's a reason that's orange, and I think the author wanted to show that that is what, even though a lot of people say obviously that's not what they're doing now, that really is what started the whole Bitcoin run, was people wanting to make money, people wanting to get rich.
Right. I think that probably was right around the time of the 2017 hype, speculation that more people will want to buy and hold it.
Yeah, I would say that was
Most
leading
of it,
right up to that pretty much. Yep.
yeah, most of it was just retail FOMO, but
Right.
there was the select few that actually were buying and holding and genuinely trying to adopt Bitcoin standard.
Right. And so everyone who had been in that digital collectible blue uh, diamond essentially would have inevitably gotten rich off of that orange one, because the orange diamond, the people who wanted to speculate and get rich, are the ones who made the digital collectors rich. You know, and everyone who speculated and tried to trade it in terms of like, oh, all time high, like buying at 16 and selling at 20 or whatever, I think they failed. So interesting lesson to be learned from speculation in terms of BTC price. Um,
Yeah.
so let's go past that, and where it says we are here all the way up to there. So we've got greater security and protocol robustness, withstanding social and technical attacks, and accumulating battle scars, and proving that the system is hard to change and thus reliable, reducing anxiety and received protocol risk. Now, it says we're here, right above that. I
Yeah.
wouldn't. I would say we are here. I think we're still very much withstanding social and technical attack in term, not technical so much. I mean, it's very difficult, technical attack maybe in terms of exchanges, but I think attacking Bitcoin, that's very difficult to do. Or at least we haven't
Yeah,
experienced a full blown attack yet.
I think one thing that I see that I like on there is accumulating battle scars, and that's something that Bitcoin has definitely done since 2017. It has a lot
Oh
more,
yeah,
it has a lot more plumbing, as some would say. So
yeah, um,
it's definitely ready to move on.
yeah. All those drops and dips where people really thought it was going to zero and stuff. The 3,000 dip and stuff, the 4,000 dip, all that stuff adds to the not the the credibility, and also like the terms of like durability. Like it really has cemented itself in terms of being worth thousands of US dollars. It will never be below that. So um, you're right. In terms of accumulating battle scars, I certainly think it's done that, and I think it's gotten the battle scars necessary to prove itself to be worthy in the future.
Oh, and withstanding social and technical attacks, like
Yeah.
there's been a ton. I mean, there's been exchange hacks. There's been that celebrities on Twitter. They got, if that's what they're talking, if that's what they mean by that. But they take a bunch of you know threats from people, countries saying that they're gonna shut it down. Like
Uh-huh.
that's a social and technical hack
Yeah,
or attack.
it is.
There's been plenty of that, and yet it still exists. So
Right.
yeah, we're definitely above all those three.
Right. Just the mere fact that I was saying it's difficult to attack Bitcoin gives way to the fact that these attacks are becoming less and less effective in terms of bringing down the growing
Right.
massive network. Like that's the big thing, is the network. If more and more people are adopting it, using it, and more exchanges and places like that and institutions exist, um, you know, what that does is create an impenetrable wall. And it really, like that. Yeah, that time has. I wouldn't say it's past. I certainly think there are things that are improvable about the security and stuff, but like I think in terms of like making an attack large enough to bring down the entire operation, I think that time has passed. I think the network itself is so large now that any single attack couldn't prove to destroy
Yeah,
Bitcoin, you
no
know?
way. Absolutely not. We're way past that point.
Right. So if we're all
Let's go on to
past
the.
that, yeah,
You go ahead.
I was gonna say if we're all past that, were you gonna look beyond us, or were you gonna continue to talk about where we are?
I was gonna talk about the next six before reliable store value.
Yeah, I think we should. I think we should look ahead right now, and let's talk about that. I'll do the first three: greater perceived safety, greater education and understanding, and greater decentralization. I'm sorry,
Decentralization. And then we got greater custodial solutions, institutionalization, financialize fan dude, I really need to, start reading some more.
Yeah.
Financialization and regulatory clarity, and greater liquidity and greater perceived protocol reliability, greater trust, and greater cognitive buy-in.
Right.
So I honestly think some of these we've achieved.
Right. So,
Obviously, institutionalization, we've definitely seen the start of institutional investors getting
oh
their hands
yeah,
on some Bitcoin.
absolutely. I think Michael Saylor was the first domino for that. And yes, he's a Bitcoin. He's one of the Bitcoin greats now, obviously, but he's also an institution. He
Yeah.
is
He
a
also has
major
a
player.
company.
Yeah, so that's a corporation that has purchased Bitcoin and has now entered the space. Same thing with Grayscale. That's an institutional Bitcoin holder. It's not just the little private players like us. And most, I think a lot of Bitcoiners right now are just private players, and I think that's changing quickly. I think institutions are very quickly becoming the bigger players, and that's natural. But it gives way to many things. Um, I think it really depends on the who you're talking to in terms of which one of these are true. Because like greater perceived safety, well, that's a perception, so it's kind of based upon who you are. Same thing with greater
Yeah, it
education
really
and
is.
understanding, right? Like I understand Bitcoin now better than I ever have, but many people don't. You know?
Going back to the institutional, um, I saw a tweet. I just found it in my likes. It says
Mm-hmm.
Grayscale has quietly accumulated another 7K Bitcoin,
Yeah.
7,000 Bitcoin over the past week. No big deal. Um, that's ridiculous because 900 are created daily
Yeah.
right now. So, I mean, 7K, that's taking all the Bitcoin of, a week and a half.
Yeah. Just tons.
All of them.
Yeah. Way more than there are being supplied, obviously. And that's where this is stock to flow in real time. Literally, it's about how many are being produced, how many are entering the market, and how many are being purchased. And boy, oh boy, it's insane that to think that most Bitcoin are already out there, that there aren't more coming out. Wow.
Yeah.
Um,
Greater, going to greater perceived safety, greater
yeah.
education and understanding. I really think we've sort of nailed those because, I mean, in mainstream media, it's actually perceived as a decent investment.
Yeah.
They don't really, they don't really, have too many negative thoughts about it. I mean, there is usually, a couple negative opinions, but usually it's backed up by someone who truly understands it.
Yeah. It's interesting how that's changed.
So I feel like we're definitely higher than where the chart says we are.
Yeah.
At what point do you think we would need to get to reliable store of value or past it?
Well, if I were to put us anywhere right now, I would put us at the greater custodial solutions, institutionalization, financialization, and regulatory clarity, because that's where we are. We're talking about regulating it in the market. We're talking about what the next treasury that Jeanette Yellen or whatever. We're talking about what she's going to be doing with Joe Biden's pick and all that. So there's all sorts of things that we're talking about in terms of regulatory shit, and we're there. I think personally, with the
Yeah.
institutions buying it. I think that's the biggest thing that anyone could be talking about. So above that is greater liquidity and greater perceived protocol reliability, greater trust, and greater cognitive buy-in. I think that is all in terms of the public. The greater liquidity, uh, I think Bitcoin is liquid enough right now in terms of like the reason the price is being driven up is the lack of liquidity. So of course it's going to be a difficult thing to acquire, but that's the whole point. I think if you wanted to acquire it easily, you should have bought it a long time ago.
Yeah. Everyone buys Bitcoin where they deserve.
Yeah. So greater liquidity in terms of that, I don't know about that. I think we're right there. Greater perceived protocol reliability, greater trust, and greater cognitive buy-in. I think that's the next step. I think, and I'm talking about the public. I think the institution. I mean, you ask any financial investor, he knows about Bitcoin, whether he likes it or not. Who knows?
Yeah.
But he knows about it. So I think institutionally, we're there. I think the public now has to be the one to take on Bitcoin and be like, oh, I like this. But I think that's
You
just,
need to be able to walk up to anyone on the street and they should have a positive opinion about Bitcoin.
they should at least own some. I mean, that's the real
Yeah.
big thing. And I mean, obviously, that's early. That's early on our chart. So let's continue on. So once we hit reliable store of value, what an interesting thing. I personally think it's reliable store of value. I think what the chart is referring to is in terms of like volatility, like daily volatility, you know?
Yeah, I guess it's talking about that reliable store of value as in like it doesn't shift too much in terms of price.
Yeah,
So
like you could put Bitcoin in on a Thursday and pull it out on a Friday and have it be fine.
I'm not sure. I mean, I think it's pretty vague. So I
Right.
think it's might be a little bit of both.
Yes. Up to perception.
Because then up above it we have growing network value. So obviously, next bull market, um, that's kind of where we're gonna be at. Because we're gonna be next time it grows significantly, that's kind of where we're gonna be at.
It's the growing network value. And I think that
Yeah.
really speaks to like the companies that are dealing Bitcoin growing value. Like this will be growing network value means that companies that mine Bitcoin are going to be valued. That means that companies that hold Bitcoin like Grayscale are going to be more valuable. That means that companies that write about Bitcoin are going to be more valuable. All sorts of things, you know? So that's the growing network value in terms of like everything about it is more valuable.
Dude, the next one is pretty interesting. Lower disincentives to spend. Um, lower disincentives to spend. Less percent gains left ahead than before.
Yeah, that's
Very
super funny.
interesting.
Yeah.
That's very interesting
So
because
let's
that
break it
is
down.
we're
Break it
not
down.
there yet.
Yeah, break it down. What does this mean?
So this would mean that Bitcoin would have to affect pretty much the way America runs. And the way that America runs is they incentivize spending and a large GDP. But this would have to completely shift, and it would it would be shifting towards a Bitcoin standard, and people putting their savings into a hard money rather than savings account. So this would be a major thing to pass because we're already very deep into um, you know, you know, consumers buying things and just incentivizing people to spend more and more money. That's what's good for the economy apparently. So
So
yeah, this is
so
going to be huge.
think
This is going
about
to be
think about
huge
it
to
in
pass.
this terms. Think about it in this terms, right? Lower disincentives to spend. So an incentive to spend means you're incentivized to spend, so you want to spend it, right? So lower disincentive means there's less things that make you not want to spend your Bitcoin. So the reason we don't spend our Bitcoin right now is because there's a large percent of gainage left ahead of them. What
Right.
what it says in parentheses is there's less gains ahead than before. So at this point, say Bitcoin has a value already of 300,000, maybe more. Who knows? Same a million. If it's a million, there is far less gains percentage wise to be had than before. So there's actually a lower disincentive to spend, as in there's a higher incentive to spend it because there's less gains to be had in the first place. So right now, like I said, the disincentive to spend is the fact that there's a
Oh
lot of
shit.
money to be
So
made.
it's the complete opposite of what I said.
Not necessarily, because what you're talking about is people want to save more. The reason they would want to save more is because the Bitcoin would be high priced in the same way, right? So it's all correlated, right? The reason people want to save more is that the Bitcoin is worth more. Because the Bitcoin is worth
Yeah.
more, people want to spend it more. It's all
That's very interesting. We have a while until that's going to be a very interesting.
right. I feel like that's so early on this chart to me. I mean,
Yeah.
because that
Maybe it's
really is
just
the end goal right there.
yeah, but maybe it's just when it dabbles into it a little bit.
Right. I think that's like once it's 200K, you and I are obviously going to be more incentivized to spend it.
So above that we have even greater liquidity, better price stability, greater acceptability and recognizability. So I mean, that's just with adoption, that'll just come naturally.
Yeah, it
And then the
honestly
next
sounds like it's
blue,
describing adoption.
yeah, the next blue main dot we got is widespread medium of exchange.
Yep.
This is pretty interesting because what do you think this would mean?
It's. I think this is literally like we can go to the store and spend Bitcoin or some form of Bitcoin, some form of interacting our Bitcoin on a daily basis. Um, so that's far on the chart. There's a reason it seems spread because being a widespread medium of exchange would mean that we have solved the problem of transaction fees, the problem of divisibility.
Right.
There's a lot of problems that need to be solved there for that to be happening, where people are sending Bitcoin straight off to each other for things
Right.
as small as coffee.
Yeah, Bitcoin is not ready to be purchasing coffee with.
No, it's designed as a store of value for now. So widespread medium of exchange, that's pretty far off, but that is what it means, is being able to like go and purchase small purchases with that. Um, and then right after that, you have even greater price stability. That's pretty self-explanatory because if it's at that point where you can go buy coffee with it, the price probably isn't moving very much at all. And finally, after that, we have convenient unit of account and full global money. Um, Convenient unit of account, I think that just means it's so stable that we can know exactly what things are worth without any sense of
Right.
non-direction. Like right
That could be
now,
very interesting.
right, like a car right now is worth, let's say a Honda Civic, brand new, semi nice, $24,000, 500, right? What does that even mean, 24,500? Like, what kind of value is that? Like, I mean, obviously you could measure
Yeah,
it
like
in gold, but that's not even a good term. I don't think that's a good form of value. I think it'd be
there's
much.
gonna be a point. There's gonna be a point where you, someone's gonna be like, "Oh, how much is a house in Las Vegas?"
Mm-hmm.
And you could be, how much is like a standard single family home,
Yes.
in Las Vegas, and you should be able to be like, "Oh, about, a million Satoshis."
Yeah.
Like you should be able to have a good understanding of how much the value of one Satoshi, be able to price things and price things with other people and trade with other people in terms of Satoshis rather than dollar.
Yeah.
It's
Seriously.
going to be very interesting switch.
Yeah. Um, and I think that would be the real end all be all for Bitcoin, is just being able to do that. Um, yeah. So this is our chart, folks. This is what we wanted to describe to you today. The adoption of Bitcoin over time, essentially. That's what this chart describes. We had some differences on where we thought the chart, or where we think Bitcoin is relative to where the chart thought Bitcoin was. But I think me
Yeah.
and Jack parsed out pretty well why we think it is where it is. I think we laid out a pretty good framework for what we think the future is too, and I think we covered the past pretty good. So yeah, let us know what you guys think. Any last words, Jack?
Let us know what you guys think in the comments, or follow us on Twitter at the Tussanite or at BTC Log.
Of course.
And yeah,
Yeah. Thank
peace
you
out.
guys. Peace out.